We invest in memory foam mattresses, white noise machines, blackout curtains, and sleep tracking apps, all in pursuit of the elusive perfect night's rest. Yet despite these technological advantages, insomnia continues to rise. Around 30% of adults report short-term sleep difficulties, while 10% struggle with chronic sleep disorders. What if the solution to our sleep problems doesn't lie in the latest gadget or pharmaceutical breakthrough, but in the seemingly outdated practices of our medieval ancestors? This may sound counterintuitive. After all, the medieval era is often portrayed as the Dark Ages, a time of discomfort, disease, and intellectual stagnation. How could people without indoor plumbing, central heating, or high-tech beds possibly have slept better than we do today? In contrast, the medieval sleep approach was fundamentally different and in many respects superior. Yet, a growing body of historical research and modern sleep science suggests that medieval Europeans may have enjoyed sleep patterns that were more natural and restorative than our own. Their sleep wasn't disrupted by artificial light, rigid work hours, or constant digital engagement. It was simply the way people naturally slept before artificial lighting disrupted the natural rhythm of darkness and rest. A 5th-10th century medical guide, Regimen Sanitatis Salernitum, advises 6 hours of sleep for men, 7 for women, and 8 for no one, suggesting sleep was distributed differently than in modern times. In Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales, characters casually mention waking in the middle of the night, not as a sleep disorder, but as a common part of daily life. After sunset, especially in the long winter months, people typically went to bed soon after dusk. They would sleep for around 4 hours, known as first sleep or prime sleep, then wake for an hour or two before returning to bed for their second sleep until morning. Far from being considered a disruption, it was often viewed as a valuable and peaceful time. Legal documents, diaries, and stories from the time describe a range of nighttime activities. Instead, it followed natural cycles aligned with sunlight and seasons. They practiced restful routines passed down over generations and lived in a culture that regarded sleep as vital to health and well-being. Such matter-of-fact references show just how normalized this sleep pattern was. Historian Roger Eckertz, author of At Day's Close, Night in Times Past, found in his pioneering research that many of today's sleep challenges can be traced to the major shifts in sleep brought about by industrialization and artificial lighting. In this exploration of medieval sleep habits, we'll step into the bedchambers, peasant cottages, and monastery dormitories of medieval Europe to rediscover the overlooked wisdom of earlier generations. From their segmented sleep patterns to communal sleeping arrangements, from natural bedding to herbal sleep aids, we will uncover practices that modern science is only beginning to validate as ideal for human health. So pull up a seat by the hearth and journey back in time to learn how medieval people, from poor laborers to noble elites, might have experienced the best sleep in recorded history. Asterisk, asterisk. One of the most striking aspects of medieval sleep, and a topic that fascinates modern researchers, is its segmented or biphasic structure. Unlike our current ideal of a single uninterrupted 8-hour stretch, people in the Middle Ages often divided their night into 2 separate sleep phases, with a quiet waking period in between. This pattern, often referred to as biphasic or segmented sleep, wasn't seen as abnormal or problematic. Historical references to this practice appear in medical treatises, literature, and personal writings. A French medical manual from the same century even gives detailed instructions. Sleep first on the right side, then after waking, switch to the left for the second sleep. But what did people do during this interval of wakefulness? That's not to say there was no artificial light. Candles made from tallow were common in ordinary homes, but were smoky, smelly, and expensive use only when necessary. Oil lamps were more common in southern Europe, where olive oil was plentiful, but rarer in the north due to the high cost of imports. Beeswax candles, which burned cleaner and brighter, were mostly reserved for the wealthy or the church. This kind of light, incidentally, is least disruptive to melatonin production. Rushlight stem plant stems dipped in animal fat offered a cheaper alternative, but produce dim, short-lived light. Studies show that even small amounts of light during sleep, like the glow from a phone or street light, can suppress melatonin by up to 50%, impairing sleep and potentially harming health. Archaeological studies confirm that candle holders and lamps were few and strategically placed, not spread across every room as they are today. Studies suggest that even minimal light can prevent people from entering deep regenerative sleep. In summer and winter, medieval people experienced dramatic shifts in daylight length, which helped regulate hormone production and metabolism, a biological benefit confirmed by modern research. In contrast, medieval sleepers, immersed in true darkness, likely achieve more consistent deep rest. They recommend bedroom environments that mirror those of the medieval world, free of artificial light, with dim, warm lighting in the evening and as dark as possible during sleep. Some even advocate for periodic darkness retreats, spending weekends with minimal artificial light to help reset the circadian rhythm disturbed by modern lighting. In our brightly lit era, we may have something to learn from the medieval view of darkness as a crucial part of healthy sleep. In his work on the distinction between spirit and soul, he wrote that sleep comes most naturally in darkness. Light, he observed, keeps the spirits active and moving outward through the body, while darkness allows them to retreat inward, inviting rest. Even when used, artificial light created only localized, flickering, amber tone illumination, quite unlike the bright, constant lighting of modern homes. A 5th-10th century English household account book notes a weekly ration of 1 pound of candles, barely enough for basic tasks. While Western societies now prioritize individual bedrooms and private beds, medieval people almost never slept alone. From peasant households to noble estates, communal sleeping was the rule, not the exception. Extending daylight with artificial light has changed our biology in ways we are only beginning to grasp. Parents, children, and sometimes even extended family or servants not only shared the room, but often slept in the same bed. This practice endured into the early modern era. The 16th century English writer Thomas Tusser noted in 500 Points of Good Husbandry that when children share a bed, they learn to sweat, quarrel, and cry, highlighting the intimacy of shared sleeping. Modern science confirms what medieval people lived by: darkness matters. Dr. Charles Chisler of Harvard Medical School, an expert in circadian rhythms, explains light is the strongest regulator of our internal clock. The medieval experience of darkness provided several advantages. First, the gradual dimming of daylight served as a natural signal to begin winding down, a sharp contrast to today's habit of staring at screens right before bed. This slow transition helped melatonin rise naturally. Second, the deep night darkness allowed for more consistent access to restorative sleep stages. Third, seasonal changes in light exposure helped reinforce internal rhythms. In the 13th century, Persian physician Qusta ibn Luqa articulated an idea that still holds relevance today. Today, modern sleep experts echo this ancient wisdom. One of the most noticeable differences between medieval and modern sleep habits was the social aspect of sleeping. In peasant homes, families usually shared a single room, often the main living space. Even in wealthier homes, communal sleep remained common. Household records from 5th-10th century England show that servants usually slept 2 to 4 to a bed. A 1465 ordinance for Edward IV's household stated that 5 yeomen of the crown were to share 1 bed and 1 chamber. For the elite, sleep was both more private and more public. Nobles might have their own beds, but rarely were they alone. Sharing a bed or room helped foster trust and closeness among family, servants, or even business partners. Guild records show that apprentices often slept in the same room, or even the same bed, as their masters, reinforcing a familial dynamic within professional training. In unheated or poorly heated homes, shared body warmth was crucial. Interior doors often lacked locks, so people relied on one another for security. While noble estates hired night watchmen, most ordinary households relied on the presence of family and strong community ties for safety at night. A 5th-10th century English household guide advised letting children sleep together in winter for warmth, and separating them in summer if space allowed to stay cool and healthy. Ladies in waiting or bedchamber attendants often slept nearby, using trundle beds that could be stored under the main bed during the day. Anthropologist James McKenna, who studies mother-infant co-sleeping, argues that solitary sleep is a modern experiment, one that diverges from most of human history and may even contribute to current sleep issues. This has led to the assumption that medieval sleep must have been unpleasant and inferior. But historical records suggest a more complex picture. Bed types vary by social class, from basic straw pallets to lavish canopied beds. But the core components were often similar: straw, hay, or reeds for the base, topped with wool or linen mattresses filled with feathers or wool, and covered with linen or wool sheets and wool blankets or fur. While few would choose the crowded conditions of a medieval cottage, the underlying social aspects of sleep connection, comfort, and security may still support better rest today. A 1378 record from the English manor of Colwick lists a feather bed, 2 wool mattresses, 3 pairs of linen sheets, and 5 wool blankets in the master bedroom. Even servants had straw mattresses refreshed monthly with linen sheets and woolen covers. Royal bedtime and waking rituals, known as coucher and lever, involve courtiers assisting monarchs in going to bed and rising, making sleep a partially public affair. Dr. James Levine, an endocrinologist, suggests that uneven sleep surfaces can reduce pressure points and encourage small movements during the night, improving circulation and reducing stiffness. Medieval guides advise replacing straw seasonally. Excavations of medieval waste pits show surprisingly low insect remains in discarded bedding straw. Le Ménager de Paris, a 15th century housekeeping manual, suggested changing straw on 4 key dates each year, using wheat straw when possible for added comfort and cleanliness. Modern research supports this, and medieval medical texts, like the 12th century Trotula collection, advise that infants sleep beside their mothers for both practical and emotional reasons. Far from being a hardship, communal sleeping was woven into medieval social life. Modern researchers are beginning to understand the psychological benefits of this arrangement. Wool in particular absorbs moisture without feeling wet and releases it as conditions change, helping maintain a stable sleep temperature. Modern research confirms that sleeping in a cool environment, ideally between 60 and 67 degrees Fahrenheit, supports deeper, more restorative sleep. Wool bedding may have helped medieval people maintain this ideal range, even without modern heating or cooling. Sleeping near trusted individuals can create a sense of safety, reduce anxiety, and promote deeper rest. For couples, synchronized sleep, going to bed and waking up together, has been shown to improve both relationship satisfaction and sleep quality. In the Canterbury Tales, Chaucer presents the pilgrims' shared sleeping spaces as entirely ordinary. The wife of Beda's discussions of sleeping with her husbands focus on their relationships, not on any peculiarity in their sleeping arrangements. Anthropological studies of traditional societies that still practice communal sleep show fewer cases of sleep-onset insomnia compared to cultures that favor solitary sleeping. This understanding of sleep as a social activity appears in medieval literature as well. Even in monastic life, which emphasized personal spiritual development, communal sleeping was standard. The rule of Saint Benedict, which governed Benedictine monasteries across Europe, specified that monks sleep in individual beds, but in a shared dormitory arranged so younger monks slept beside older ones, who could guide them. Besides providing comfort, communal sleeping had practical advantages. The presence of others also added a layer of protection. For nursing mothers, sleeping near their infants enabled easier nighttime feeding and monitoring. As our sleep arrangements have become increasingly private, some scientists question if we've lost something beneficial. The medieval view of sleep as a communal, shared experience, rather than a solitary escape, may still offer valuable lessons. Modern sleep therapies now incorporate echoes of medieval practices. Weighted blankets, which mimic the feeling of another person's presence, are used to treat anxiety and insomnia. When imagining medieval beds, many picture uncomfortable straw mats on hard wooden frames, a stark contrast to our modern memory foam and luxury sheets. Medieval bedding used clever designs and natural materials that could offer real comfort and even some advantages over modern synthetics. Household inventories provide clear descriptions. Straw was more than a substitute for modern materials. Fresh, dry straw provided excellent insulation from cold floors while allowing air to circulate, helping regulate body temperature. This regular rotation helped maintain hygienic sleep surfaces. Fresh straw contains silica and natural insect-repelling compounds, offering protection against pests like bedbugs. Though unfamiliar today, the slight texture of straw bedding may have offered ergonomic benefits. On top of the straw base, wool, linen, and feather-filled mattresses offered impressive temperature regulation. Linen, made from flax, added to this comfort. It wicks moisture better than cotton and strengthens when wet. Linen also has natural antibacterial qualities, helping keep bedding clean even with less frequent washing. Lavender, chamomile, rose petals, and sweet woodruff were scattered in straw or sewn into sachets. Archaeological finds back this up. Remnants of herbs are often found with discarded bedding straw. This semi-reclined pose, recommended by medieval physicians for better digestion and breathing, matches modern advice for sleep posture. These weren't just for scent, they had real calming effects. Modern studies confirm lavender reduces anxiety and improves deep sleep. Today's research increasingly highlights the downsides of synthetic bedding, which can trap heat and moisture, harbor allergens, and release volatile organic compounds that interfere with rest. The renewed interest in natural options, such as wool mattress toppers, linen sheets, rather than being jolted awake by abrupt alarms. Medieval people typically rose with the sun or were gently stirred by natural environmental cues. Bells marking the hour of prime around 6 a.m. served not as disruptions, but as community-wide reminders that morning had begun. This increasing exposure to dawn light naturally decreased melatonin and boosted cortisol levels, preparing the body to wake up refreshed. Modern science confirms that this gradual exposure to light is one of the healthiest ways to awaken. Studies show that it allows people to complete their sleep cycles and wake during lighter stages of sleep, avoiding the grogginess known as sleep inertia. As Robert of Brunn wrote in his 14th century Handling Sin, morning bells wake, not with sudden clamor, but ring as though to remind the soul that day approaches, found that participants exposed to natural light patterns woke up more easily and reported greater alertness than those who used artificial lights and alarms. In the summer, with earlier sunrises, they often woke as early as 4:30 or 5 a.m., while winter mornings might begin closer to 7 o'clock a.m. This seasonal flexibility has largely been lost in our modern electrically lit environments. Household manuals advise that the first to wake should tend the fire and gently wake others. A 5th-10th century poem, How the Good Wife Taught Her Daughter, instructs, "Rise times in the morn, wake your fellows all, and be the first up to kindle the fire in the hall. The body is wired to respond to the gradual light of dawn," he explains. This process triggers hormonal shifts that ready the body for natural awakening. This poetic view reveals a very different relationship to waking one, centered on gentle transition rather than abrupt interruption. This doesn't mean they lack time awareness. On the contrary, their days were structured around gradual and consistent transitions. Roosters crowed at dawn, starting softly and growing louder, a far gentler method than modern alarms. In larger homes or monasteries, designated individuals would wake others for daily duties or prayers, often sharing useful information about the day ahead. The rule of Saint Benedict, which guided monastic life across medieval Europe, specified that monks be roused by a designated brother who would signal the time and announce the hour, adding a social element to waking that is absent in today's mechanical alarms. The church bell served as the central timekeeper, ringing at regular intervals to mark the canonical hours, which divided the day into roughly 3-hour blocks. And pillows filled with buckwheat or lavender reflects a broader recognition that our ancestors may have understood essential principles of sleep comfort that have been lost in our embrace of synthetic products. Sleep expert Dr. Chris Winter notes, There's growing appreciation for the advantages of natural fibers, their breathability, moisture control, and temperature regulation in creating an ideal sleep setting. A 2014 study in the Journal of Alternative and Complementary Medicine found that lavender essential oil increased slow-wave sleep, which is vital for physical recovery. A 14th century English record shows that linens were washed quarterly less often than today, but regularly enough for hygiene. Feather beds, for those who could afford them, added luxury. The finest were filled with goose or eider feathers, offering softness and insulation. In 1415, noblewoman Alice de Brienne bequeathed her best feather bed, with pillows and bolsters, to her daughter, highlighting their value. Another medieval sleep element largely missing today was the use of aromatic herbs. Medieval texts like Circa Instans, a 12th century pharmaceutical guide, recommended lavender to comfort the brain and promote restful sleep. Medieval sleepers also often rested in a slightly upright position, with bolsters or pillows under their upper body. In the end, the medieval sleep experience, though shaped by its time, was far more sophisticated than many assume. From communal arrangements to natural bedding and herbal aids, it reflected a rich understanding of both the body and the human need for connection, comfort, and rest. Indicates that sleeping with the upper body slightly elevated can help reduce acid, reflux, and support better breathing for those with sleep apnea or respiratory conditions. Interestingly, medieval illustrations frequently depict sleepers in this reclined posture, and surviving bed frames from that era often feature headboards shaped to hold pillows and bolsters at an incline. The 5th-10th century physician Aldo Brandino Siena advised in his Regimen Sanitatis that the head should be slightly raised above the feet, but not to a degree that would strain the neck or back. Modern research into optimal sleep posture, as published in the Journal of Clinical Gastroenterology, the natural materials used in medieval bedding also offer valuable insights for improving modern sleep. While few would willingly swap a modern mattress for a medieval straw bed, the underlying principles of medieval sleep, natural materials, regular bedding maintenance, aromatic enhancements, and ergonomic support can offer practical guidance for improving modern sleep hygiene. One of the most notable differences between medieval and modern sleep is the absence of alarm clocks. Unlike today's sudden alarm interruptions, the sound of church bells was a familiar backdrop to daily life, gently woven into the rhythm of sleep. Equally important in regulating sleep was natural light. With windows made of oil, parchment, or cloth, rather than glass, light could filter into medieval homes more gradually. Dr. Kenneth Wright, director of the Sleep and Chronobiology Laboratory at the University of Colorado Boulder. Medieval people also adapted their sleep schedules to seasonal changes. Aside from light and bells, rural households had other natural wake-up cues. In typical households, family members often took on this role, especially in winter when sunrise came late. Without rigid work schedules or long commutes, mornings in medieval times unfolded more gradually. The start of the day usually involved lighting the hearth, sharing a simple breakfast, and performing religious devotions, creating a natural alignment between mental and physical readiness. One of the underappreciated aspects of medieval sleep was the normalized practice of napping, especially in summer when daylight hours were long. Resting after the midday meal allowed people to realign their sleep patterns to the demands of the season. Short daytime naps have been shown to enhance mood, focus, and alertness without disrupting nighttime rest. Medical texts from the period echoed this. The influential 12th century medical school of Salerno advised in its health guide, "Rise from sleep leisurely." Chronobiologists increasingly advocate for a more flexible, circadian-aligned approach to sleep. As sleep expert Dr. Michael Bruce puts it, the first hour after waking sets the tone for the entire day. Rushing into it triggers stress responses that can last for hours. Long before modern sleep medications existed, medieval people relied on a rich pharmacopoeia of herbs to manage sleep difficulties. Far from superstition, many of these remedies are supported by modern scientific findings. A 13th century farming manual, Fleta, recommends that workers pause at midday during peak heat before returning to work later in the afternoon. Unlike today's pharmaceutical sleep aids that force sedation, these herbs aim to relax the body and mind, naturally addressing root causes like anxiety, digestive upset, or pain. Physicians like Avicenna recommended wild lettuce for sleep, writing that it cools the mind and brings sleep. The Greek herbal from the 5th-10th century advised including lettuce in evening meals for better rest. This adaptability helped compensate for shorter nighttime sleep and allowed for seasonal variations in rest. Small sachets of dried hop flowers were sewn into pillows to induce sleep. Interestingly, modern nutritional science has validated many of these beliefs. A common bedtime drink was warm milk with honey, often spiced with nutmeg or cinnamon. Research shows that milk contains tryptophan, a precursor to serotonin, which supports sleep, while honey provides just enough glucose to help tryptophan cross the blood-brain barrier more effectively. Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century German abbess, wrote that hops make the heart sad and weigh down the organs, recognizing their depressive effect on the nervous system. It quickly earned a reputation as a natural remedy for restlessness and difficulty sleeping. Modern studies now confirm that it boosts GABA levels in the brain, which slows neural activity and supports relaxation. Today, science confirms that the bitter acids in hops increase GABA activity in the brain, leading to sedation. First, gradual awakening through natural light, gentle sounds, or interpersonal interaction is better aligned with human biology than abrupt alarm disruptions. Some sleep researchers now recommend dawn-simulating alarms that slowly increase light, or smart alarms that track sleep cycles to wake users during lighter sleep stages, replicating the natural patterns familiar to medieval sleepers. And slowly, violent movements after rest are harmful. The 16th century herbalist John Gerard noted that chamomile procures sleep and is especially beneficial for those troubled by restlessness. A 14th century cookbook from the court of Richard II includes a spiced almond milk drink intended for evening use. Today, we know that almonds are rich in magnesium, a mineral that naturally relaxes muscles and enhances GABA activity. Modern science attributes these effects to apigenin, a natural sedative compound found in the plant. It was the medieval equivalent of a natural tranquilizer, prescribed for mental disturbances and nighttime wakefulness. A 9th century text from the Medica Salernitana recommends valerian for those whose sleep flees from them. Modern studies confirm its effectiveness in reducing the time needed to fall asleep and improving sleep quality by acting on GABA receptors similar to many sleep medications, but without the same side effects. This aligns with today's understanding that abrupt activity after sleep can impair mental and physical performance. Unlike today's often hectic mornings, medieval people typically lived where they worked on farms, in home-attached workshops, or in manners eliminating the need for rush routines and travel. Agricultural and household records frequently reference this meridian sleep or midday rest, particularly during long harvest days. Modern research is increasingly validating the benefits of this kind of flexibility. The medieval approach to waking offers several takeaways for improving modern sleep habits. Second, adjusting sleep patterns seasonally and embracing naps when needed may be healthier than rigidly sticking to fixed schedules. Finally, allowing for a slower transition from sleep to activity, giving time for natural wakefulness, can reduce stress and improve overall well-being. Although most people can't fully replicate the rhythms of medieval life, we can still apply its underlying principles to design better, healthier transitions between sleep and wakefulness. Another overlooked benefit of medieval sleep culture was the use of herbal remedies, what we might now call plant-based sleep aids. Medieval varieties of lettuce, which contain higher levels of the sedative compounds lactocin and lactocopicrin, were also used. Hops, now associated with beer, were once prized for their calming properties. Passion flower, though more commonly used in later centuries, rounds out the medieval toolkit of plant-based remedies that supported natural sleep without modern pharmaceuticals. Passion flower, or Passiflora incarnata, was introduced to European medicine from the Americas in the late medieval period. Beyond specific herbs, medieval diets also featured many foods believed to improve sleep. Almonds and almond milk were frequently part of bedtime rituals. A 14th century cookbook from the court of Richard II includes a spiced almond milk drink intended for evening use. Today we know that almonds are rich in magnesium, a mineral that naturally relaxes muscles and enhances GABA activity. A 15th century recipe book, La Viandière de Tailvent, includes a preparation of lettuce with nutmeg and other spices meant to encourage restful sleep. Lettuce, especially wild types, was also eaten in the evening for its calming properties. Medieval sleep practices weren't limited to food. They also included aromatherapy. Herbs like lavender, chamomile, and rose were commonly used to scent bedrooms and bedding, helping to create a soothing sleep environment. The 11th century Persian physician Avicenna categorized these sleep problems and offered specific remedies for each. Modern science, particularly research on the gut-brain axis, supports this link. These herbs not only mask odors and repel pests, but also have therapeutic effects. Unlike modern pharmaceuticals, which often override natural sleep cycles and may result in grogginess or dependence, medieval herbs worked in harmony with the body's rhythms. Pain-induced sleep disturbances were addressed with a combination of pain-relieving herbs such as willow bark, which contain salicin, and sedatives like hops or valerian. They promote relaxation and target root causes of insomnia instead of simply forcing sleep. The 13th century Antidotarium Nicolai, a widely used medical text, lists multiple compounds designed for sleeplessness caused by bodily pain. The 14th century French physician Jean de Gaddesden recommended perfuming bedrooms with roses, violets, and water lily to comfort the mind and promote sleep. As awareness of the downsides of modern sleep medications grows, there's renewed interest in these traditional plant-based solutions. Herbs like valerian, chamomile, passionflower, and hops central to medieval practices are now the subjects of clinical trials, many of which confirm the observations of medieval herbalists. Unlike today's habits of late-night eating, medieval mealtimes align naturally with circadian rhythms patterns. Modern science now considers ideal for both digestion and sleep. Dr. Sachin Panda, a leading circadian rhythm researcher at the Salk Institute, confirms that meal timing significantly affects metabolic health and sleep. Household records and cookbooks show that evening meals often included bread, cheese, perhaps leftover cold meats, and seasonal fruits or preserves, very much in line with what modern nutritionists suggest for sleep-friendly evening eating. Archaeological analysis of medieval bedding often reveals traces of such aromatic herbs. The 14th century French doctor Bernard de Gordon advised a small piece of bread soaked in diluted wine or almond milk with honey foods that satisfy without burdening the digestive system. Milk is rich in tryptophan and calcium, both essential for sleep. The influential 12th century physician Maimonides advised waiting at least 3 hours after eating before going to bed, a recommendation echoed by today's sleep experts. Modern science confirms the effectiveness of these scents. For instance, inhaling lavender has been shown to improve sleep and reduce anxiety through its influence on the limbic system. Medieval sleep medicine took a holistic view of insomnia. Physicians tailored treatments to different causes, including mental agitation, pain, digestive issues, and environmental disturbances. At noon and supper, a lighter meal consumed in the early evening before sunset. The 14th century Liber de Coquina contains almond milk recipes specifically suggested for evening consumption. This schedule of heavier eating earlier and lighter meals later matched the body's natural metabolic cycles. For anxiety-related insomnia, calming herbs like lemon balm and chamomile were used, often alongside gentle physical treatments like head massages with rose or lavender oil. Digestive-related sleep issues were treated with herbs like fennel, anise, and mint, reflecting the medieval understanding of how digestion and sleep were connected. What made medieval remedies distinct from many modern sleep aids was their focus on underlying causes rather than inducing unconsciousness. Dr. Michael J. Bruce, a clinical psychologist and sleep expert, explains. Many of the herbs used in medieval sleep medicine support the body's natural neurochemistry rather than suppressing it. This general approach also meant fewer side effects. The active compounds in these herbs often provided added benefits, such as mild pain relief or digestive support. Our medieval ancestors, with their deep understanding of plant medicine and holistic sleep strategies, may offer insights more relevant than ever, showing that effective solutions might come not from stronger pills, but from gentler, natural approaches. Medieval approaches to food, what was eaten, when, and how much, also played a crucial role in promoting better sleep. The daily routine in medieval Europe typically centered around two main meals. Dinner, the largest meal, served between 10 a.m. men, the 13th century health manual Regimen Sanitatis Salernitnum advised. Eat well at midday, sparingly at night, for great suppers bring great harm and make the night uncomfortable. Modern research on chronobiology validates this principle. Studies show that our bodies process food more efficiently earlier in the day, and late-night eating can impair both metabolism and sleep. Medieval suppers, typically eaten between 5 and 6 p.m., were intentionally lighter and simpler than midday meals. Medical texts from the time made direct links between meal composition and sleep. For those who felt hungry before sleep, physicians recommended light, digestible options. The medieval diet naturally included many sleep-supporting foods. Dairy products, especially warm milk with honey or spices, were common in evening meals. Nuts like almonds, frequently used in medieval recipes, are high in magnesium and tryptophan. Leafy greens were also common. Wild lettuces contained sedative compounds, and medieval kitchen gardens often included greens like purslane, which contains melatonin, and borage, known for its calming properties. Whole grains, especially coarse breads, provided complex carbohydrates that released energy gradually, preventing blood sugar dips that can wake sleepers. Barley, a staple grain, contains melatonin and selenium, both helpful for sleep regulation. Medieval orchards also grew sour cherries, now recognized as one of the few fruits with natural melatonin. The 5th-10th century Book of Courtesy even recommends cherries to end the evening meal, showing an intuitive grasp of their sleep-enhancing properties. The medieval tradition of a light collation winter diets focused on preserved meats, root vegetables, and hearty grains, providing sustained energy during long nights. The 12th century abbess and medical writer Hildegard of Bingen recommended evening meals in summer include lettuce, purslane, and berries to calm the body and promote restful sleep. They avoided large amounts of fluid before bed, recognizing without modern studies that waking to urinate interrupts sleep. For those who did need something to drink before bed, posset was a popular choice. Warm milk curdled with ale or wine, often seasoned with sleep-enhancing spices like nutmeg. Firstly, their practice of consuming the largest meal around midday, rather than in the evening, aligns with our natural metabolic rhythms. This allowed the body to focus on restorative functions during sleep rather than on processing heavy foods. Research in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine supports this, showing that high-fat intake before bed is linked to less restorative slow-wave sleep. Scientific studies confirm that identical meals eaten at different times of day affect the body. Differently meals consumed later in the day are more likely to interfere with sleep and promote weight gain. These contain compounds that aid the sleep cycle, offering a natural alternative to modern medications, which can come with unwanted side effects. Unlike our mostly sedentary routines, broken only by occasional gym visits, medieval people were constantly active in diverse ways as part of their everyday existence, creating excellent conditions for sound sleep. Tasks such as plowing, sowing, harvesting, threshing, and milling require continuous effort throughout the day. Even jobs perceived as less physically strenuous, like scribes, entailed more movement than today's office work, which often involves long hours of sitting in ergonomically designed chairs. As sleep researcher Matthew Walker notes in Why We Sleep, regular physical activity significantly improves sleep quality, particularly the slow wave phase, the most rejuvenating stage. It's not merely about tiring the body. Exercise triggers internal processes that regulate our sleep-wake cycles. Even outside the peak seasons of planting and harvest, farm work demanded ongoing physical involvement, tending animals, repairing structures, collecting firewood, and fetching water. As nutritional psychiatrist Dr. Uma Nadu notes, the medieval habit of eating a larger meal earlier, a lighter one later, and incorporating sleep-promoting nutrients reveals an intuitive understanding of what modern science now calls chrononutrition. By re-engaging with these historical eating patterns, we may be able to restore some of the sleep quality that came naturally to medieval people as a result of their daily food habits. Modern studies suggest this combination milk, S-tryptophan, and a small dose of alcohol may encourage sleepiness without the harmful effects of higher alcohol intake. Most tasks were completed during daylight, with the heaviest work done in the morning and early afternoon times when body temperature and coordination naturally peak. This schedule, which involved intense movement earlier in the day followed by gradual slowing in the evening, supported natural sleep readiness. Instead of water with meals, which was uncommon, they drank small amounts of watered wine or ale. A 14th century agricultural manual, Senoi, the Office of Senior, advised farm managers to assign the most labor-intensive work in the morning, when workers had the most strength, and to schedule lighter tasks for later in the day. This approach balanced productivity and sleep efficiency. These drinks were much lower in alcohol than today as equivalents and often included herbs that aided digestion and sleep. The higher fat content also supported hormone production, including those tied to sleep. Often just bread and watered wine or fruit aligns closely with what sleep nutritionists recommend as an ideal bedtime snack, small, simple, and easy to digest. Religious practices required fasting not just during Lent, but also on many other days, including Wednesdays, Fridays, and before major feast days. These fasting periods often involve skipping the evening meal or consuming very light fare. Fasting was another routine part of medieval life with possible sleep benefits. Modern research on intermittent fasting shows that periodic digestive rest can improve metabolic health, lower inflammation, and support better sleep. Medieval diets were also shaped by the seasons in ways that supported shifting sleep needs. Summer diets, by contrast, featured more fresh fruits and cooling vegetables. People in the Middle Ages also understood the impact of liquid intake on sleep. The 13th century Tarquinium Sanitatis notes that a small amount of diluted wine at supper supports digestion without causing nighttime awakenings. The medieval approach to meal timing and composition offers valuable guidance for improving modern sleep through dietary habits. Secondly, medieval evening meals were typically lighter and simpler, which eased digestion at night. Third, many evening meals naturally included sleep-supportive foods such as dairy, nuts, and certain fruits and vegetables. Lastly, the medieval custom of finishing dinner well before bedtime, what we might now refer to as intermittent fasting, has proven benefits for both sleep and metabolic health. Daily movement as a lifestyle. A key difference between medieval and modern life was the level and type of daily physical activity. Roughly 90% of the population worked in agriculture, where physical labor was vital to survival. Urban tradespeople also engaged in physically intense labor. Blacksmiths, carpenters, stonemasons, and weavers carried out demanding work that required both strength and stamina. This steady, varied physical exertion was ideal for fostering deep, restorative sleep. Natural timing of physical activity beyond the quantity of movement. The timing of medieval physical effort aligned well with natural circadian rhythms. Modern studies show that exercise raises core body temperature, and the cooling phase that follows helps bring on sleepiness. Even in religious and scholarly communities, physical labor played an essential role. Monastic rules often require periods of manual work to balance intellectual activity. The Rule of St. Benedict, for example, prescribed a daily rhythm of prayer, study, and physical labor, acknowledging the need for bodily exertion to support holistic well-being, including rest. Unlike modern workouts that often isolate specific muscles and repetitive motions, medieval labor engaged the entire body through diverse tasks. Farming required movements such as lifting, carrying, pushing, pulling, bending, and walking over uneven ground. Craft work also demanded a wide range of motions, unlike the repetitive tasks found in modern factory or office settings. The quality of physical movement. Exercise experts today are increasingly recognizing the benefits of functional fitness natural, varied movements that engage multiple muscle groups for both physical health and better sleep. These physical adaptations reflect a lifestyle of constant motion rather than sedentary habits punctuated by occasional activity, a sharp contrast with modern norms. This natural light exposure supported healthy sleep-wake cycles. Morning light, in particular, plays a vital role in signaling the body to wake up by suppressing melatonin. The medieval lifestyle, which included full-spectrum light exposure, especially the blue wavelengths, critical for circadian health, created optimal conditions for sleep. Since medieval workers often started their day at dawn, they benefited from maximum morning light. Medieval physical activity wasn't just frequent, it was functional and varied. The agricultural calendar dictated high activity in spring and fall and slower periods in winter. Medieval life accommodated this through shorter workdays in winter and longer ones in summer, sometimes with a midday rest during the hottest hours. Without electric lights, televisions, or digital devices, medieval people naturally slowed down as night fell. Such routines helped ease the transition to sleep. Evening activities were quiet and calming storytelling, light handwork, prayer, or gentle conversation by firelight. First, regular moderate activity throughout the day seems more beneficial for sleep than a sedentary lifestyle interrupted by intense workouts. Studies suggest that light to moderate activity spread across the day supports better rest than sporadic high-intensity sessions. This gradual decline in stimulation closely resembles what modern sleep experts now recommend, though few people follow. The 13th century manual, Walter of Henley's Husbandry, confirms this rhythm, noting that winter work should last from sunrise to dusk, while summer days might stretch from pre-dawn to after sunset. The medieval pattern of intense movement in the morning and lighter activity later fits with optimal circadian patterns. Research on seasonal affective disorder suggests that aligning habits with natural cycles supports overall well-being. Morning walks or daylight exposure help regulate circadian timing and improve rest by combining physical activity with the natural effects of sunlight. Modern science confirms that heavy exercise too close to bedtime can delay sleep. This seasonal flow matched the body's natural inclination for more sleep during the long nights of winter. While modern culture often treats sleep as a hindrance to productivity, medieval people saw it as a divine blessing and natural delight. This variety helped develop all-round muscular endurance without leading to the kind of repetitive stress or extreme fatigue that can interfere with sleep. Archaeological evidence from medieval cemeteries shows skeletal features consistent with regular, strenuous activity beginning in early life. By adopting aspects of this older lifestyle, consistent movement, well-timed exertion, natural light exposure, and seasonal flexibility, modern people may rediscover the restful sleep that came so naturally to their medieval ancestors. Walking as a daily necessity. Yet modern research shows that regular walking, especially outdoors, helps synchronize circadian rhythms, reduce stress hormones, and create the physical fatigue needed for quality sleep. As Dr. Kelly Glazier Barron, a sleep expert at the University of Utah, explains, walking combines three critical elements for sleep: physical movement, exposure to natural light, and a calming connection with the environment. Walking was the primary mode of travel in the Middle Ages. Historical records suggest that people commonly walked 5 to 10 miles daily, with longer distances undertaken for trade, religious pilgrimages, or seasonal labor. For example, the 5th-10th century travel logs of William Way show that ordinary travelers often walk 15 to 20 miles a day. By contrast, modern Americans walk less than a quarter mile per day on average. Most medieval work took place outdoors or in naturally lit workshops, a sharp contrast to today's predominantly indoor, artificially lit spaces. Studies in the Journal of Clinical Sleep Medicine show that people who work in environments with regular daylight exposure Sleep nearly 46 minutes longer per night than those without it. Seasonal adjustment to work patterns. Medieval work schedules naturally adjusted with the seasons, which likely supported better sleep. Modern research suggests that humans, like many animals, need slightly more sleep in winter. Reduced evening stimulation. Another key difference was the absence of artificial stimulation in the evening. A 5th-10th century household guide from Alice Brienne describes evenings spent in quiet conversation, devotional reading, and preparing simple crafts, all in harmony with the body's natural drop in alertness. Insights for modern sleep. The medieval connection between physical activity and sleep offers several lessons for today. Second, the timing of activity matters. Third, being outdoors adds sleep benefits. Finally, seasonal shifts in activity and allowing for slightly longer sleep in winter may enhance both sleep and mood. As exercise scientist Dr. Stuart Phillips notes, the medieval model of consistent, varied, moderate physical activity during the day, followed by calm evenings, creates an ideal foundation for good sleep, something modern habits rarely achieve. A different view of sleep. Perhaps the biggest contrast between medieval and modern sleep lies not in lifestyle, but in perspective. This view appears across medieval texts. Religious writings frequently praise sleep as a gift from God, often referencing Psalm 127:2. He gives to his beloved sleep. It was seen as a sacred time when the body healed and the soul rested in God's care. Even secular literature shared this attitude. Chaucer's Book of the Duchess calls sleep the best remedy for both body and spirit, while the 14th century poem Pearl describes it in similarly glowing terms. Their appreciation of rest sharply contrasts with today's habit of seeing sleep as unproductive or even lazy. Unlike the guilt often tied to modern sleep, medieval individuals saw it as a natural, essential, and even enjoyable part of the divine rhythm of life. Sleep, in this worldview, wasn't just necessary, it was cherished. Medical writings from the time acknowledge that sleep needs differ by body type, age, season, and situation. The well-known 12th century guide Regimen Sanitatis Salernotumum suggested that calm, sluggish temperaments needed more sleep than energetic, choleric types. Unlike today's often private and individual sleep settings, medieval sleep was shared. This made nighttime sounds, breathing, shifting, even snoring a familiar background rather than a disturbance. This view gave dreams a sense of purpose and made sleep feel like an essential part of life, not a meaningless break from it. Historical accounts suggest people were less bothered by such noises, having grown up around them. The pressure to be constantly productive, driven by capitalist ideals, was not part of their mindset. Although medieval workdays could be long, especially during harvest, work was guided by necessity and nature, not by abstract productivity goals. Rest was understood as both valid and vital. The medieval approach, which accepted variation as normal, suggests that flexibility may improve sleep satisfaction. This visibility of others' sleep habits made natural variations like waking briefly or getting up in the night feel normal. People who view sleep as valuable in itself, rather than just a means to perform better during the day, tend to sleep more peacefully. While idleness could be criticized, proper rest and sleep were clearly distinguished from it. Sleep was recognized as essential for both physical and spiritual health. As Thomas Aquinas wrote in Summa Theologica, rest is not opposed to virtue when it serves the proper functioning of body and soul. Without the guilt that many modern people feel about resting, medieval sleepers were likely more able to relax when rest was needed. That's a sharp contrast to today's ideal of 8 silent, uninterrupted hours. This flexible approach recognized natural differences rather than enforcing a universal rule. Sleep research shows that positive attitudes towards rest are linked with better sleep and fewer insomnia symptoms. Where sleep was sacred, medieval wisdom from modern rest, whether spiritual, like prayer, or secular, like quiet reading or breathing exercises, these routines can signal a healthy transition from wakefulness to sleep. This view accepted how the body responded to changes in daylight, something often missing from today as tightly structured schedules. Sleep needs by age were also addressed. A 5th-10th century health book, Taquinum Sanitatis, stated that young people needed more rest to support growth while older adults required less. Recognizing that sleep changes with age may have eased the pressure modern people feel when they don't match normal sleep patterns, anxiety that can itself worsen sleep quality. But in the medieval world, sleep still followed nature's lead. This helped people avoid what scientists now call sleep onset anxiety, the stress of trying to fall asleep, which ironically makes it harder. People believed dreams could carry divine messages, that angels might offer protection, and that sleep was a time for spiritual insight. Bedtime prayer was widespread. Many devotional books, such as the popular 5th-10th century Book of Hours, included nighttime prayers to ask for protection. Into thy hands, O Lord, I commend my spirit. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord, thou God of truth. This faith likely reduced nighttime anxiety, while the act of prayer itself became a calming bedtime habit that prepared the body and mind for rest. Since they didn't know exactly how long they had been lying awake, how little time remained until morning, medieval sleepers avoided a major cause of modern sleep disruption. Even in times of grief, medieval people found moments of peace and sleep. One major factor that improved medieval sleep was the absence of precise timekeeping in everyday homes. Without clocks regulating strict bedtimes and alarm-based wake-ups, people followed more organic sleep patterns. These rhythms were shaped by their bodies, sunlight, and the life of the community, not by rigid schedules. Bells and sundials gave a general sense of time, but there was no constant ticking clock. This lack of precision removed much of the stress modern people associate with sleep, like counting remaining hours or worrying about when to get up. Historian Eviatar Zerubbabel, who studied how time was organized socially, explains that mechanical clocks introduced an artificial structure to human experience. Medieval thought also embraced individual and seasonal variation in sleep, which modern standardized models often ignore. Seasonal variation was also considered normal. A 13th century physician, Aldobrandino of Siena, wrote that longer winter nights called for more sleep, while shorter summer nights naturally led to less. The communal way people slept also influenced their relationship with rest. Spiritual meaning was deeply connected to sleep in the Middle Ages, an aspect mostly absent in today's secular perspective. Medieval views on dreams were also distinct. Instead of seeing them as random brain activity or psychological puzzles, people often believed dreams had meaning or spiritual value. Perhaps most significantly, medieval culture lacked today's widespread guilt about rest. The medieval view of laziness or sloth was more nuanced than we might think. So what can we learn from all this? The medieval view of sleep can actually offer guidance for improving modern rest. First, changing how we think about sleep from a chore to a benefit can ease the anxiety that often surrounds it. Second, easing strict expectations about sleep time and duration might reduce the performance pressure we place on ourselves. Third, meaningful pre-sleep rituals can help prepare the body and mind for rest. Fourth, understanding sleep as part of life as natural rhythm, not as a pause in productivity, might help us let go and rest more fully. Looking back at the sleeping habits of our medieval ancestors reveals a striking picture. Despite lacking modern beds, blackout curtains, and sleep trackers, medieval people likely slept more naturally and perhaps more deeply than we do. Their use of herbs gently encouraged rest rather than forcing unconsciousness. Their meal timing and daily movement patterns supported sleep instead of interfering with it. Most of all, their mindset saw sleep as a gift, not a burden, helping them embrace rest instead of resisting it. Their segmented sleep patterns matched their body's rhythms instead of forcing them into a rigid 8-hour block. But in the specific area of sleep, the absence of modern pressures created ideal conditions for rest. As sleep expert Matthew Walker puts it, today we're running a giant experiment on ourselves, disrupting sleep patterns, shaped by millions of years of evolution and thousands of years of tradition. And the results show in our rising rates of sleep disorders. They experienced real darkness that supported melatonin production, and their bedding materials adapted to their bodies. They slept in groups, which offer both safety and a sense of normalcy about sleep disruptions. None of this is to idealize the past. Life in the Middle Ages had many difficulties, disease, poverty, and short lifespans among them. Don't treat it as lost time or something to minimize. Their understanding wasn't based on science, but it often aligned with what science is now confirming. Their sleep wasn't perfect, and they lacked treatments for serious disorders. But their lifestyle, shaped by nature and necessity, supported quality rest in ways our high-tech world often does not. See it as vital to your health and wholeness as our ancestors did. Yet this historical knowledge offers hope. We can blend modern knowledge with past wisdom. We don't have to give up electricity or medical care to bring back what worked. We can adopt some of these time-tested practices, and in doing so, they left behind a legacy of rest we may do well to remember. Try segmented or biphasic sleep when possible, maybe on weekends in view. Middle of the night waking as natural time for reflection rather than a problem. Make your sleep space truly dark. Use blackout curtains, cover electronics, and reduce artificial light to mimic the night sky. Choose bedding made from natural fibers like wool, cotton, or linen, which breathe better and regulate temperature. Create consistent, calming bedtime rituals that help your body recognize it's time to rest, just as medieval people did with prayer or quiet conversation. Use gentle herbal aids like chamomile, valerian, or lavender remedies that supported sleep long before pharmaceuticals. Shift eating habits so heavier meals come earlier in the day, with light, digestible foods in the evening. Spread movement throughout the day, avoid intense workouts right before bed, and get morning sunlight to help reset your biological clock. Most importantly, work to change your attitude towards sleep. In today's world of screens, schedules, and sleeplessness, the way medieval people approach rest can feel refreshing, even wise. The greatest lesson? Medieval people didn't treat sleep as something to optimize. They simply lived it as naturally and openly as breathing.